Repo time. Right there, black and white. Black and white. Yes, I already said that. 12 for 24. Says people are moving, being returned, needs picked up ASAP. So, you know the drill. Hello, I'm here to pick up the building.
Mom, they're here for the building. The building people are here.
Yeah.
I didn't look in it yet. I didn't know if you got
It's empty.
out ready to go.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
empty, and then I'll have him move my car or something in here into the grass.
Okay. Yeah, he can move that a little bit, and I can just back right to it and
Okay.
load it up. All right. Thank you.
There might be cats in there, I'm not sure.
All right, I'll check. Yikes. I see there's a saw. Hi, puppy. Well, there's a toilet. Why wouldn't there be a toilet? Kind of have to move it so I don't push it against the building. Alright, we got over here.
He acts like you bite.
Yeah, he's tied up. Alright, sit watch for cats under there, so.
Honestly, I don't think they'll be under there after we just walked around it.
I don't see any. I mean, you know how fast cats are.
Yeah,
so
they're gone.
they'll be out. Alright, that'll be easy, thank you. Okay, this is exciting. It's funny because I was talking to my wife on the way down, and I'm like 3 hours. It's a 3-hour drive back to where I drop it, and that puts me about almost 4 hours to home. And I said, well, you know what? Maybe it'll be an easy one where I can back right up to it and just load it up. And voila, there we are. I haven't done one of these in a long time where I can just back up, load it up. So let's do it. That was probably the fastest that I've ever done. In and out. About, I don't know, probably took me 10 minutes, maybe less than that. And we're gonna hit the road. Catch you later. Okay, so I figured this was a really short video. That was very easy. Repo is a voluntary return, ready to go. I would take some time to answer some questions that are asked a lot. I'm gonna go through the comments and kind of see what I can see what I can answer. But first I want to get into a little bit of detail, try to answer or kind of put information out there about the rent to own. And the question sometimes is, you know, people who repo cars, you know, can you do that kind of stuff, whatever. So I don't understand really anything about car repo. I've never done it. I don't know anything about it. I just know that the my understanding would be, I guess, on cars, and you can people can put it in the comment. I'm curious, but you go and you borrow money from the bank to buy a car, and so essentially you owe money to the bank. You're in debt, and the car is used as collateral. That's how I see it. I may be wrong, but that's how I see it. I hope that sun's not just blinding that camera. See if I can block it a little bit. There we go. That might be better. And it's not good if the sun's shining right on the... It's a beautiful day though. Just gorgeous day. Okay, so I would guess that the car is used as collateral. And then I don't know what's all in the contract, what all they sign on that stuff, but in the shed industry was what I do is, this is not, these sheds are not collateral. There's no finances involved, or that's not true. I don't know how to say it, but they're not borrowing money. They don't go to the bank to borrow money to buy a shed. Okay, they're what you call rent to own. So the builder has an agreement with the rent to own company that they will buy essentially all these buildings. I mean, really, that's what it is. They're buying these buildings. If somebody comes in, they buy a shed and they want to pay cash, then, you know, you pay for it, or a check, whatever. Or if you want to do rent to own, great. They fill out an application. There's no credit check. There's no reporting either when they don't make the payment. It doesn't do anything to credit, because they're renting it. They're renting it until they pay for it in full, and then they own it. So now what you have is the rent to own company buys the shed. They legally own the shed. It's their building. I'm going to keep saying building because it sounds like I say something else, or you know what I mean. Sounds like I say it was a T. I learned that if I go on Google and I, you know, like Siri or whatever, you know, the voice, and I say shit something, it always says shit. It's like, okay, no, that's not what I meant. So they own the building, okay? They bought it, they own it, they're renting it out to the customer. So that means the customer don't own the building. And I gotta, hold on, I gotta pause this. Okay, I'm back. My battery was getting really low and then it distracted me. Had to plug it in. So the rent to own companies own the sheds. They own the building. And there's a contract involved where, of course, there's things in there, and there's different contracts for different buildings. But I would just say, you know, different contracts for different companies. There goes the guy that sketches for me, I think. So there's things in there like you can't fix it to property, like you can't tie it down or something, so we can't get it. Sorry, Adam. You know, that was a joke. We were doing a live and Adam was trying to figure out how he can keep it from being repoed. But first of all, you're not allowed to do that. That's in the contract that they agreed to. Some of them have things in like, don't hook electric to it, don't lift in it, don't have animals in it, don't put plumbing into it, don't build onto it, don't modify it, don't, you know, there's a lot of these things. You have to give access to it at all times. And they sign a paper agreeing that the rent-to-own company or its agent, which would be me, the right to come on their property at any time. So a private property sign don't mean much to me, if I'm allowed to say that, because no, you gave me the right. You signed a paper saying, yes, you give me the right to come on the property to retrieve our property. Me as the agent of the rent-to-own company. And I don't want to get into all the legal terms. I'm sure there's people have all their opinions about it. You know, you can go on YouTube, everybody's got an opinion. But that's the contract they signed. That's the agreement they signed to. And includes stuff like you can't put something, you got to have it accessible. It's where we can get to it. So if you put anything in front of it, we have the right to remove it. Whether that's a vehicle or a trash or a toy or a fence or whatever. You signed the contract giving us the right to remove whatever is in the way to retrieve the property. That building belongs to somebody else. And those are just a contract. So, you know, people should read their contracts. I know you don't. I don't. It's just how life is. But they typically don't understand that stuff. And then the stuff that's in it, what some of them will say is, if the payment's not being made anymore, then the contract is terminated. And then the stuff that's in the building becomes abandoned property. And so the rent-to-own company has the right to take that. Or the one I read, I know it says that I have the right to, if I go to repo it, it gives me the right to choose to whether I want to take the stuff outside and leave it there, or if I want to leave it in the building, take it with me. And so I can make a judgment as to whether or not it's safe. So if the building's out close to a road and there's a nice motorcycle in it, I'm not going to want to roll it out and leave it outside because it might get stolen. I'm not responsible for it because you left it in the building and it's considered abandoned property and you signed the lease to agree to it. But I'm still not going to do that because I don't want the bike stolen. So I'll leave it in the building. So there's just stuff like that in there. And let me think. Another one. Oh, I wanted to share the story. There's a lady I talked to that's been in the business for a long time. And she used to own a rent-to-own company. And she tells me the story of how, I might not get at everything perfectly right as she told me. But she owned the rent-to-own. She had the rent-to-own company. She sent the driver out to pick the building up. And they modified it. So much so that they couldn't pick it up. I don't know what they all did to it, but there was no way to actually them just take the building because they had it all modified. So she says, okay, well, take a rope or chain and hook up to it and just tear it apart. I'm just going to let that sink in a little bit. Just let people freak out while I just sit here and watch the crows. And, how can you do that? She owned the building. Her building. She owned the building. She paid for it. You know, the other people they're renting it. And I don't know of any rent-to-own company to do that. I'm not trying to make them look bad. I've never heard of anybody do that, but I don't think that she did a bad thing either. She said that she's like, all right, well, if I can't have my building, you can't have it either. It's just that simple, you know. And that's where, you know, we give grace and mercy to people, and we're, you know, that's all good, but at some point, you got to also just say, look, dude, you can't do that. I picked some of these sheds up and just destroyed. They're nasty and dirty and I've seen pigs in these things. Like pig poop, like covered. They use them for animals, for pigs and stuff. Full of just all kinds of crap. It's ridiculous what people do to some of these things. And then we're supposed to just be like, oh, well, that's okay. No, we don't play that game. But the other hand, yes, we're nice and we try to work with people. But I also have to learn that the sun's trying to get onto the camera. You know, by the time I show up, the rent-to-own company, they've sent out letters. They're at least 3 months or more behind on payments. A lot of these things. Yesterday I went after one that the funny thing was the husband, the wife calls the husband and is like, they're here to get the shed. We're trying to get them with money. They end up coming up with about half of what they were behind on it. They were over $3,000 behind on payments. And that was the funny part. That's not funny, but it's funny. But $3,000 behind. And the husband says I heard him on the speakerphone with her. It's like, well, I just made a payment like the other day. Is somebody home around here? You just made a payment the other day? How can you be $300 behind? Now, that's actually possible if he was, you know, $4,000 behind and he made a $1,000 payment, but then I wouldn't have been there if he had done that. So, you know, people, the one I show up, that's one of the videos, lady's like, what? I only missed one payment. No, I wouldn't be here if you just missed one payment. They never send it out. The first payment that gets missed is when they send out the letter to tell you that behind the payment. Oh boy, I'm trying to, okay, I'll just hold my hand right there. It's gonna mess up the video, but I don't look that good anyway, so I don't need good video. That's just some of the scoop of it. Some of the stuff that I see and some of the stuff that I hear, and then, you know, the comments, I read them a lot, and they're mostly good. There's some negative ones. Some of the negative ones so bad I don't even see them because YouTube blocks them. But anyways, that reminds me. I was going to read some comments and just kind of see. So I'm going to try to go here. Contains questions. So this just should be... Okay, that one just says, who lifts like that? All right. Did you notice the part she was sitting full of chunk? I don't really see a question there. Go away notification. I'm trying to get some questions here that I can answer. I didn't look at this before I started. Where do you get your meal to haul? Where do you get your meal to haul your movie boxes around? The movie boxes? It literally says movie boxes. Well, the meal, it's on the meal. It's called Cardinal. Cardinal Manufacturers is the company who... Hey, the sun went down over the hill, over the trees. Is who makes the meal. One price or question I get is the price on the meals, and I guess sun's back. The one I got is the meal 624. I would highly recommend the meal 628 for people that are in that world, because I learned that the 628 has 4 more horsepower. It has auto throttle, the E throttle, which is really nice with the remote. And brand new, last I checked earlier this year, was $43,000 brand new with the remote. That remote that I use itself cost me $3,400. So that's the same amount that these people were behind on their payments. The bigger ones, the Meal 7, I don't know. You're obviously going to be 50, probably over 50. And then there's the Meal, the 628, that has a 5,000 pound lift. That's what I'm talking about. There's one that has a 10,000 pound lift. That's going to be more. And then the Meal 5 and 4, I really don't know. The Meal 4 doesn't have a remote. Meal 5 has a remote. They don't have tracks. They have wheels. So you're looking at, you know, probably brand new, you're probably 25 is going to be, you know, probably over 25. So 25,000 to 60,000 roughly. You could buy them used for 25,000, 40,000. I mean, right now the used one, like this one here, I could probably sell pretty quick for $40,000, even though a brand new one's 43, because they're 9 months or more behind in making them, and it's just crazy. Okay, that one, how do you do it? That's a simple question. I just did it. That's I don't know how to answer that one. Why would a person buy a swing set on credit? I don't know the answer to that question either. People are, humans are interesting. That's my slogan. Humans are interesting. And why didn't you hop out of the truck and remote drive the truck and shit between the trees across the bridge in order to watch the clearance? I think that's going to be a joke because I don't have a remote for my truck. That's the next thing I need is a remote for my truck. Any idea on how long the Duramax will be out of service? Hope we get it fixed for around... Hope they will fix it for another 400,000. Yeah. So the Duramax has 450,000 miles on it. The 3rd engine in it. I was supposed to be able to get it today, but... the mechanic texted me late last night, so he was working on it really late, I guess, and he said it doesn't have fuel pressure. So for those who don't know, it actually burned the hole into the piston, and so we're replacing the piston. It's about $5,000 is roughly what I think it's going to cost. Putting a new motor in it would have been $15,000. This motor only had just over 100,000 on it. It's the 3rd motor, so that's the scoop on that. And yes, I did get a aftermarket, I believe it's the Etch brand gauges to put in there so I can watch temperature and stuff. Okay, are these sheds you resold? Yes, that's another question I get a lot. Is yes. So basically I bring them back to the lot. Sometimes it's the same lot they were sold at the first time, or it'd be a different lot. These are lots kind of like dealerships, like where they sell cars. So you got this big shed lot with a bunch of storage buildings in it. And yes, they're always resold. A lot of times they put them on Facebook Marketplace. Levi here in Mount Vernon, Ohio, he puts it on, I believe it's called Mount Vernon Sheds and Barns Facebook page. He puts them on. How do I buy a shed you bring back? Well, that's a tough one kind of, but it depends on what area you're in. I would search on Facebook Marketplace in your area, or find a local lot in that area and just check to see if they got any repos. Some of the builders that if you search, you know, a shed, you know, builder in your area, sometimes they have it on their website. Things like that. Looking for more questions. I should have went through this and found some good questions. Are they going to pick up their stuff from the shed after you drop it off? Yeah, so I've noticed a lot of times they don't. I know sometimes they do. I do know that some of the rent-to-own companies have in the contract that they can keep their property. They can keep that stuff that's in the building. First of all, their contract is that they're not responsible for it if it gets damaged during transport and that kind of stuff. But they do state that they have the right to keep it and sell it as, you know, collateral at that point. But I've never heard of them actually doing that, because they just turn around and sell the shit. And sometimes they should, because they literally destroy the shed. But most of the time, that's also where pretty much most of the stuff in there is just trash for them to go through it, try to sell it, and even worse it. So if they don't come get it, they have a dumpster, or they have somebody comes out with a dump trailer and they pay them to clean it out, take it to dump, and I'm sure they find stuff they keep or sell, whatever. But that's pretty much what happens to it. Is, yes, typically they have different companies have different policies, but they might have 5 days, or some might have 15 days to be able to come get their stuff. And if they don't get it by then that's done. This one says, do you wear ear protection in repo work? I don't know why I need ear protection. So no, I don't wear ear protection. Maybe it's just finishing the last letter. Seems to be dropped off. I don't understand that one. I mean, these are comments on specific videos. Just curious, how much does a trailer like that cost? All right, so a trailer like this, I happen to know somebody has a few of them for sale actually right now, and they're anywhere from, I think, I don't know, maybe 30,000. I have to check, 30,000 to 40,000 on used ones that are, you know, 5, 6 years old, 2 years old, 1 year old, that kind of stuff. Brand new. They gave away a trailer. I was gonna win this thing, and I don't know what happened, but for some reason I didn't win it. It's beyond understanding. I don't know, but that was a joke, kind of. I have a lot of sarcasm, so people get used to that. But no, I bought tickets for it. But they have the shed hauler bash. A bunch of shed haulers come together, and they gave away a brand new trailer. You had to buy tickets, $100 a piece, and then they gave away a trailer. That trailer was over $100,000. So that's a regular bumper pool with all the bells and whistles on it, sideway wheels, leveling axles, all that kind of stuff. You can get them, I think, brand new. I know this one here that I'm pulling right now was brand new in 2017, and they paid $32,000 for it. And I'm pretty sure you're probably going to pay around $40 to $50, maybe more than $50 for that trailer. No sideway wheels. That's inflation and, you know, stuff like that. So again, there's a lot of different sizes, different custom stuff to it. So, but a brand new one that you're going to be able to haul a 40-foot load, you're pretty much going to spend, you know, over $40,000. That's pretty much guaranteed. And you're probably also going to wait 9 months or more to get it made, because they're that far behind. Do you ever get any flack about hauling away people's belongings in the sheds? Yes, I get some flack. I had recently, this video will upload soon, but I had a guy come. I got in and out as fast as I could because I knew the history of it. I knew I had to get out of there because he was knowing to come home before he get it out. He comes flying down the road right in front of me in oncoming traffic, pulls right up in front of me. I could have head-on hit him, but I chose not to. Comes up, starts yelling at me. His face was like right here, like inches from my face. And his wife had told me earlier that they had COVID, so I don't know. But He may have given me it. Who knows? He probably didn't have it either. They just say that. But he got really mad, and I ended up rolling my window up. I had my phone laying here with 911 on, ready for dial. I told him, look, you make one bad move, I'll hit it. And of course, I got my piece in the center console too. But he got real mad, and then the next day I had an older lady push me around and shove me around and throw stuff at me. So it was two very interesting days. But that's what you get. So here's a comment. This is not a question, but I'll read it. Hey, Butthead, how would you like to come home and find all your belongings towed away? Butthead, empty it. Yeah, I probably, what I would do is just pay my bills. Or if I don't do that, I would take responsibility and I would call the company and tell them that I can't make my payments anymore so they can come get their building. And then I would get my stuff out because I'm responsible for my stuff. I get pretty passionate when I talk about this stuff because I'm really sick and tired of this mentality that I'm seeing in America that people have no responsibility anymore. Like, oh, it's his fault. Oh, look, they know that they got to get their stuff out. A lot of times it's returns where they're like, supposedly call the company and say that they want to return it. Well, that's when the company says, oh, well, make sure you get your stuff out because we're going to come get it. And then I show up and all their stuff's in it. That's their stuff. It's their responsibility. Like, come on. You know, like, this just frustrates me. Like, somehow this is my fault. No, it's their responsibility. I take responsibility to pay my bills. That's why I have this job. I take... oh, come on. Responsibility, man. Come on. Do these companies make any money with all the returns? I don't know. It's a simple answer because... you know, I'm not them. My guess would be is that they lose money on some, they make money on others. Some of the buildings are pretty much destroyed where they have to sell them for a lot less than they have in them. And sometimes they barely make payments on them. I've gone after buildings that they have never made a payment. They got the thing. I can't say they bought it because they didn't. They got it and they never made a payment. Never once made a payment. And if they are really bad on it, then even if they modify it and all that stuff, then they might lose. And then there's times where people will pay on it for a while and maybe they'll insulate it and actually increase the value of it. And so, you know, it's, I don't know, I'm just guessing. I don't want to say too much because I don't know anything about their stuff. I will tell you the one that I went after years ago. This was before I was taking videos. I know another driver went after a couple of times. I don't know how many times we went after this one. There was a guy living in it about my age. You could tell he was addicted to drugs. A couple of times there was a couple old ladies and another older gentleman there. And they were living in this thing, had electric running into it, had a wood stove in it. And so this is in the winter time. So they always had a wood fire going. The stove is hot. They got a chimney up through the roof with a hole in the roof. Again, just stuff you're never supposed to do. And so we just never could get it. Finally, I showed up one day and he had it cleaned out. No, he did not have it cleaned out. They were gone. Most of the stuff was still in it. The electric was hooked off. The electric was unhooked. And the stove was out. So that was good. I was able to get it. I ended up picking it up and just let a bunch of stuff go out the back. Because it was just like all the way around. Everything's just trashed. And I loaded it up, took it to the lot. And the guy's like... I don't want that thing. I mean, it was just, the inside was black with smoke from all the wood smoke. Just nasty as can be. He didn't want to deal with it. So, I gotta drink water. So I got a hold of the owner of the rent-to-own company. I asked him if he would be willing to just donate it to the church I go to. They needed something like that for storage. And then he can write it off as a donation. So he agreed to do that, and then me and my wife went, cleaned it out, wearing clothes and, you know, extra clothes and gloves. Found, you know, thranches and stuff like that in there. Didn't see any actual drugs, but definitely evidence of it. Took everything out, threw it in the burn pile, replaced the roof, cleaned it up real good. They're still using it for storage, so it was a blessing for them and a loss for the rent-to-own company. And I mean, they can use for tax write-off, but still, it was going to be a loss. So they, you know, they lose, they win. You know, it's part of, obviously they're making money or they couldn't be in business. I mean, I don't know if you know, but you can't have a business and not make money. That's actually just literally impossible. So that's the scoop of it. So anyways, I just wanted to just kind of give an information on that of, you know, the rent to own thing is just, people should know this. And if you're buying a shed, you know, the best thing for me to say is to do it outright, just pay cash for it. I wish my shop couldn't even exist, because I don't want people to go through this stuff, but they choose to do that. Nobody's making them do that stuff. And I always think sometimes, you know, maybe they'll learn a hard lesson, and they'll, you know, change their life. And yeah, it sucks, but you know what, sometimes I'm a stubborn person, so sometimes I have to learn the hard way. So man, this has been a 20-minute long video. I don't believe it. So hopefully that answers some of the questions. I'm starting to sweat in here. I turned my truck off. But yeah, that's the thing that I'm going to keep pounding and keep in my head, is that it's rent to own. And they do sign a contract that gives me the right to go on their property to inspect it, get it, whatever I need to do. And, you know, you can't go and rent equipment. You can't go and, you know, rent a piece of equipment one weekend from a rental store and then go and, you know, modify it or take some power line, you know, hydraulic hoses off of it, or paint it or sell it or put a fence around it and try to keep it from them. It's not going to work. Like, it's not your equipment. You just can't do that. So that's the scoop on that. Anyways, that being said, thanks for watching, and I'm out.